Hey guys, Papa Pete here. Welcome to today's episode of the 125. The 125 is my YouTube show that's about the 125 games that were released for the original Intellivision System back between 1979 and 1989. It's a little bit different kind of show because I not only have the review and history video, the one that you're watching right now, but there's also a separate gameplay video of the game that I do in a particular episode. So be sure to check that out. Anyway, without any further ado, today I'm going to look at a game that is kind of notorious, but at the same time very infamous, one of the all-time great arcade games from the classic era of arcade gaming, and that is Coleco's Donkey Kong. Here we go. When it comes to the golden age of arcade gaming, several titles immediately come to mind. You have Space Invaders, Asteroids, Galaxian, and of course Pac-Man, but perhaps the one that has had the longest lasting effect on modern day gaming is Donkey Kong. Created by the famous Nintendo programmer Shigeru Miyamoto, Donkey Kong was released to great fanfare all across North America on July 31st, 1981. The game's release not only introduced the title character Donkey Kong to the modern day lexicon, but it also introduced a little character named Jumpman. Of course, we all know who Jumpman became. Jumpman is now known as Mario, probably the most infamous video game character in the world today. It's literally had dozens and dozens of games released for every generation of consoles ever since. I still remember the very first time I ever saw Donkey Kong, and here's a clip of exactly where I saw it.
Hey, hold it. What is that?
Hey, it's Donkey Kong.
Again?
It's the new video game. You know, I wanted to try this. I didn't know you ordered it. That's great.
We didn't order nothing.
Got the invoice right here. Delivered to Archie Bunker's place. Here's a signature.
This is the signature of a fermented person.
Every time I see that clip, it really brings back some memories. But anyway, let's go back to the start of it all and talk about how Coleco came to have the port of Donkey Kong. Well, in 1981, as Coleco was getting prepared to release the ColecoVision system, they recognized the fact that arcade ports were very important to the success of any system. They saw it with Atari, so they immediately went to Nintendo to try to negotiate some deals for some of their top arcade titles to port over to their new system. With this goal in mind, they had very tense meetings with Nintendo over in Kyoto, Japan, and the story has it that one of the lead engineers for the development of the ColecoVision system, named Eric Bromley, was at one of these meetings, and after some very tense moments, he excused himself to go to the washroom, and while he was on his way back, he found an arcade cabinet that ended up being Donkey Kong. He had never seen it before, it hadn't yet been released in the States, but was getting ready to be, and at that time, he knew that that was the game that they wanted. There were some serious negotiations, a lot of ups and downs during the negotiations, and Coleco ended up paying a lot more for the rights to Donkey Kong than they'd ever paid before. It's really a very interesting story, so be sure to check a link in the description to a full article all about those negotiations, as well as a link. There's also a link if you're looking on my Facebook page, which details those negotiations and the day that really led up to Coleco gaining the rights to Donkey Kong. Now, when the ColecoVision was released in 1982, of course, there was great fanfare for it having exclusive rights to that fantastic title of Donkey Kong. And they thought they'd take advantage of the whole situation. Shortly after the release of the ColecoVision system itself, they also released Donkey Kong for the Atari 2600, and of course, this one right here for the Intellivision.
It's Donkey Kong, the arcade sensation, and now you can play it at home.
Hang on, sweetheart! I'm gonna save you!
Now you can play Donkey Kong on your ColecoVision, Atari VCS, or Intellivision video game system. Donkey Kong has multiple screens, just like the arcade game.
You're not gonna stop me, you stupid ape!
Play Donkey Kong on your ColecoVision, Atari VCS, or Intellivision video game system.
Don't worry, darling! I'll save you!
With great anticipation, having seen the fantastic port that Coleco made for their ColecoVision system, Intellivision fans eagerly awaited the game's release on their system in the fall of 1982. What they ended up getting? Well, that is a different story. Since Donkey Kong is such a well-known game, I'm just going to give a quick summary of the gameplay itself. Donkey Kong is a single-screen platformer where you control the hero, now known as Mario by the time the console ports were released, as he tries to rescue his girlfriend from the clutches of the evil Donkey Kong. The controls of Donkey Kong are very simple. The only time you use the keypad at all is for selecting the number of players in the game and also selecting the skill level. Other than that, you just move left and right on the girders or up and down the ladders using the directional disc. And as for jumping, you jump with the side buttons. Although there are 4 different screens in the arcade version of Donkey Kong, the Intellivision version, just like the Atari 2600 version, only includes 2 of these screens. It includes the girder screen or barrel screen, I've heard it called both, and it also includes the rivet screen. On the barrel screen, Mario runs up the angled girders, trying to avoid the barrels that Donkey Kong is throwing at him. By climbing the ladders and working your way to the top, you try to get to the very top level to rescue his girlfriend. There's a timer as well, which is shown under the bonus. It starts between 6,000 and 8,000 and gradually works its way down. If it does get down to 0, you do lose your life. However, if it reaches 0, you lose a life, but if you make it to the top, you score the number of points that are shown on the timer. You can also get points by jumping over the barrels, or by smashing the barrels with the hammers that are found on the 2nd and the 4th girder. You can jump up and grab these hammers and Mario will start swinging it, smashing any barrels that you hit, scoring pretty good points. But you have to be careful because there's a couple things about it. It only lasts so long and you can tell it's about to disappear when it starts flashing a green color. Also, you have to be extra careful because the barrels can slip underneath that hammer. And then if it hits you, even though you are holding the hammer, it will still kill you. Finally, as for the hammer, you can't climb the ladders while you're holding the hammer. So make sure you have lots of time left on that clock when you're doing so. The rivet screen has some similarities, but frankly it has more differences from the barrel screen than anything. Yes, it's similar in the fact that Donkey Kong still has Mario's girlfriend up at the top, and the goal is to rescue her. But other than that, there's not many similarities. Donkey Kong doesn't throw enemies at you in this screen. There's actually just fireballs which enter from the sides, and they cross over the girders that are there, and they will go up and down the ladders chasing Mario. If Mario touches one of these fireballs, he dies. It is very, very difficult to jump over them. You will score points if you do manage to jump over them. But the main way you're going to score points or get rid of the fireballs is by using the 2 hammers, which are also located on this screen. The actual goal of the level is to remove the 6 rivets that support the center girders that Donkey Kong is standing on. You remove these rivets by either running over them or jumping over them. It'll destroy the rivet, but it creates a gap which you no longer can go across by walking. You have to jump over from that point on. But one advantage of taking out the rivet is the fireballs can't cross over those gaps either. You'll also notice that there's 3 personal items of Mario's girlfriend on the screen: the purse, the hat, and the umbrella. You don't have to grab them to complete the level, but they do give you bonus points. So the best strategy involved is to try to develop a pattern, avoid the fireballs, pick up all 3 bonus items, and hit all 6 rivets to release that the center girders and have Donkey Kong plummet to his death. Hold it. Plummet to his death? Maybe I should have looked at the next section before I said that. Here's where it starts to go downhill for Donkey Kong on the Intellivision. Let me start it all off by just saying this. This game is ugly. First, let's talk about the enemies. On the girder screen, the barrels, well, they're okay. They aren't quite as chocolate chip cookie looking as they are on the Atari 2600, but they aren't great by any stretch of the imagination. The graphic transition as they sort of turn sideways down the ladders is pretty well done. It does sort of look like a barrel. And of course you have the little graphics inside which do make it shows the motion and the direction a little bit. But overall it's not fantastic by any stretch of the imagination. Also, the oil barrel at the bottom does absolutely nothing. When the barrels hit it, they just go through it. They just disappear. They don't turn into a fireball and chase Mario back up the screen. There's no first barrel that's thrown down into the oil barrel. It just doesn't exist. Basically, they roll down the screen and they just disappear. Even when they're hit with a hammer. In the arcade game and other versions, of course, there's a little explosion and a sound effect. In the Intellivision version, When you hit them with a hammer, they just disappear. There is a little sound effect, but nothing elaborate whatsoever, and absolutely nothing graphically. Now on the rivet screen, the fireballs are just this weird brown color. I'd almost call them, they're certainly not red or orange, I'd almost call them mud balls rather than fireballs. And to be quite honest, I think using the term mud might be just trying to be a little bit kind. And as for the backgrounds, I could summarize the backgrounds in this game in 2 words: pink and blue. Not even at the same time. On the barrel screen, everything in the background is pink. The girders, the ladders, and even Mario's girlfriend is pink. And on the rivet screen, well, you do have a little bit of variety because the 3 bonus items, the girlfriend's items that you have to pick up are actually an ugly pea green. But other than that, everything else is blue. It's the girders, the ladders, and again, even Mario's girlfriend's blue. At least the other character sprites have some color to them, but then again, Mario looks absolutely nothing like Mario. He's flesh toned with like gray overalls. He looks more like Hampton Pig from Tiny Toons than what I remember as being Mario. And as for Donkey Kong himself, I can actually see the structure of Donkey Kong there because I'm sort of familiar with it, but man, it's ugly. Those dots across the middle are supposed to be the outline of his arms, and this shows how he's standing there sideways and he turns and rolls the barrels down. But, you know, the bottom line is this. If you look at it in one fashion, those dots sort of look like it's his mouth with buck teeth, and it looks more like a disformed Kool-Aid man than anything. These graphics just simply suck. There's absolutely no animations whatsoever. Even when you get to the top to rescue the girlfriend, Donkey Kong doesn't grab her and go up to the next level. The action just stops. There's no pre-game animations. There's no in-between level animations. There is absolutely nothing. No music really per se either. And remember how I said I should have held back before I talked about Donkey Kong falling on his head when you remove the last rivet? Forget about that in this game. You pull out that last rivet, the level ends, but there is no animation of Donkey Kong falling down on his head. It's just almost unforgivable that this is missing from the game. Just like the graphics, the sounds of Donkey Kong are subpar. There's next to no music in the game whatsoever, other than like a 3-note little thing as you start a level, and a small little fanfare when you beat a level. One sound that's very well known in Donkey Kong games is a sound that Mario makes when he moves. It's in all of them, and it's very recognizable. You can tell it's Donkey Kong being played without even being able to see it because of that walking sound. Well, Intellivision does have the walking sound, except for it's like fingernails on a chalkboard. It is so annoying. It's the kind of game that when you're a kid trying to play it, if your parents were in the room, they tell you to shut it off because it was just simply annoying. There's also a high-pitched sound when you jump, and an even higher-pitched sound when you actually jump over a barrel. And that higher-pitched sound is the same sound that's used when you destroy a barrel with a hammer, or when you go over and remove a rivet on the rivet screen. There's also absolutely no music whatsoever when you're holding the hammer, which is very, very disappointing. Overall, I have to say that the sound in Donkey Kong for the Intellivision is very poor. I mentioned earlier that the control scheme in Donkey Kong is very simple. You use the disc to move left and right, up and down the ladders, and when you want to jump, you just use basically any one of the side buttons. Because of this, there were no overlays included with Coleco's Donkey Kong for the Intellivision. That being said, simple controls are not necessarily a problem. The problem is when the controls aren't good. And in this game, as you're moving, it feels like you're running through mud. The jumping also doesn't feel precise. It's like you just can't quite tell. There are several times I went to jump where I would feel like I jumped at just the right time, but went a little bit late and I jumped into the barrel. Or to try to make up for that a little bit, I tried to jump a little bit earlier, and then I jumped too early. It just didn't feel precise. How do I summarize the overall controls in Donkey Kong? Well, let me say this. It's a type of game that when you're playing it and you're pushing on that right-hand side of the disc to run right, you almost have this desire to press even harder to make you go faster. And when you feel like that because you don't feel like you have full control of a game, that certainly isn't a good thing. I can still remember when I first played Donkey Kong back in 1982. I showed you earlier about the first time I ever had seen any reference to Donkey Kong whatsoever, the arcade game. I didn't see it around here much in the arcade. I don't remember playing the arcade game. But way back in those days, when the ColecoVision came out in the summer of 1982, my oldest sister, who lived in Bangor, Maine, they were going out to get a video game system, and I sort of half convinced them to get a ColecoVision system. I could remember playing Donkey Kong a ton on their ColecoVision, and I absolutely loved it. So later on that fall, when back up, my other brother-in-law went out and bought the game because he wanted to play Donkey Kong as well, and after having played the Coleco version of the game, I just really did not like the Coleco version for Intellivision. At the end of the day, it was all about money. Coleco had the rights to these great arcade titles, and to make more money, they ported them all over to the Atari and also to the Intellivision. I mean, Mattel countered by putting in some code in that referenced the menu screen in some of these games. It made it so these games, there's 5 different Coleco titles, which will not work on the Intellivision too. But it was the original console wars back in those days. Although it's never been proven, some people even believe that Coleco intentionally sabotaged the ports of their arcade titles on the Intellivision in order to make the ColecoVision seem like a much superior system. I don't know if that's the truth or not. Nobody truly knows, but it's more realistic that the poor quality of these ports for the Intellivision and even the Atari to a lesser degree wasn't due to any intentional sabotage. It was more to do with having inexperienced programmers with the Intellivision system and just a real rush to get the games to market to again make as much money as possible. I mean, even to this day, the actual programmers who programmed all 8 of the ColecoVision games for the Intellivision are unknown. Nobody has stepped forward to do it. Was it a team? Was it an individual? Are they embarrassed? I don't know why. We don't know who they are. But if you go to the Blue Sky Rangers page and check the programmers of each and every game of the 125 for the Coleco titles, it's blank. And when they did this game on the Intellivisionaries podcast, they couldn't identify and find the programmer who did Donkey Kong for the Intellivision. Back to the sabotage theory, if you go to the Blue Sky Rangers website, it points out that several of the programmers back at that time believed this theory of sabotage by Coleco. Blue Sky Rangers Mark Ubanek, Bill Fisher, Steve Roney, and the late great Keith Robinson are all noted as having begged Mattel management to let them create a ported Donkey Kong that properly showed what the Intellivision system could have done. Even if it was only for demonstration. Unfortunately, Mattel never did allow them to do so. It would have been very difficult to do. But fear not, Intellivision fans, because there's a happy ending for those who want to play Donkey Kong on the Mattel Intellivision. In 2002, Intellivision homebrew programming whiz Carl Miller Jr. started working on a port of Donkey Kong for the Intellivision system. First released as Donkey Kong Arcade by Intelligent Vision, the game eventually moved over to William Muller's production company Electronite, where it's now known as DK Arcade. This incredible version of the game had not only the rivet screen and the barrel screen, but it also included the other 2 screens, the conveyor screen and the elevator screen. It also reintroduced the intermission screens and the other animations that were missing from the Coleco port. The graphics and the sounds were vastly improved, but best of all, the feel of the gameplay was perfected to make it a true Donkey Kong experience. On top of all this, Miller introduced a variety of characters, so you could play 3 different characters in the game, and it also 2 different types of gameplay. The differences were absolutely incredible, and finally, Intellivision fans have the version of Donkey Kong that they really deserved back in 1982. Best of all, this version of Donkey Kong, DK Arcade, is still available today. You can go to various locations online to pick up your own copy from Electronite, officially from Electronite, including TelevisionRevolution.com. Rev has a few on the site right now, but I know there's not very many left, so if you're looking for one, you should get it sooner than later. So, by all means, if you love Donkey Kong, this is a great title to add to your library. I would go as far as to say if you like homebrew games at all with the Intellivision, this is one you really should start with. But today, we're talking about Coleco's version of Donkey Kong for the Intellivision. And it's all we had to play back in 1982. Okay, graphics. All I can say is the graphics are bad. And as for the sounds, well, they are pretty much just as bad, if not worse. You add all that along with the sluggish gameplay, the fact that there's only 2 screens, no animations. I mean, if you want to look at something good, well, it is playable. You can play the game. We did play it back in the day, and you put it on. It works. You could play the game. But, man, overall, taking all of these things into consideration, I am going to give Donkey Kong by Coleco for the Intellivision a 2 out of 10 rating. Well, guys, that's it for today's episode of the 125. I'm not going to go right out on a limb and say that Donkey Kong by Coleco is the worst game on the Intellivision system, but I'm going to say this. I think it certainly is in the running. We've got a long way to go anyway, guys. But in the meantime, thanks for spending a little bit of time with me today watching the 125, and we'll be back soon with the next episode. You take care.
Papa Pete, the old ass gamer. Papa Pete, the old ass gamer. If you haven't grown up by the age of 50, you don't have
I'm Rick Reynolds of the Intellivisionaries podcast, and you're watching Papa Pete, the old guy gamer.